Hi, everyone. James Daniel. I'm on my own today. Uh, Taylor and Seb are off somewhere. But I want to continue the little series that we started, and I'll try to do briefly, which is hard for me, without someone or Seb to control my rambling. But the subject we started yesterday is a three-part series, the the three streams of love, and and I'm sorry about not knowing exactly where to look at these things because I am kind of an amateur, and I know I have an iPad. I'm working on an iPad, and I have a camera over here somewhere that I should look at, but it's not here. And when I'm talking to someone else, I'm looking at them, and it's all kind of scattered. But I think it's good to have uh, contact, so I try to be clear about that. But I don't know. I'm going to figure out how these brilliant podcasters do all of this. But at the moment, we're just rambling along. So the three streams of love is what we were looking at. Because at the Love Foundry, we're empowering people with love, or helping people empower themselves, basically, which is the only way it can happen, which is the wonderful thing about the three streams of love. They come with free will. And today we're going to be talking about the second stream. Yesterday we talked about the subject, and then we talked about the mother stream, which is the third stream, the intelligence stream, and Mother Nature and Mary and all of those folk. Today we talk about the second stream, which is the Son stream, which is what Jesus carried in him. And that involves something that's unique and extraordinarily important, I think, to human experience right now because of the approach of that stream to manifesting is an individuality in the human experience. Now, all three streams are already in the human experience, and that particular unique individuality stream, by having joined us at the baptism in the Christian story, in a new way, it has always been here, like all three streams, and it matures in our consciousness as we mature. And so humanity had come to a place, I guess, because it did happen, where it was possible for this to happen. And we had produced an individual in whom it could happen without that individual losing their shit. So let's take a look at it from that point of view. It's not a spectacular endorsement of anyone's life like Jesus or someone else. Krishna was certainly an embodiment of this quality on a different level, in a different way, before it had individualized its embodiment with us 2,000 years ago. Krishna, what goes back to maybe 6,000 or 8,000 or something of that nature. So these things change in humanity. And as we grow up, and sometimes you look at the world and think we're growing down, not up, but that's because there are forces in the world that are very material and very hard-shelled, and they attempt to take over our consciousness and make us serve them. Life seems to be full of things like that. In this particular case, we're looking at something that serves us, which is the remarkable quality of this stream of love. Its singular identifiable quality is humility, the willingness to serve without question the human experience and other experiences as well, but we're focusing on ourselves, at the behest or the free will of the individuals ourselves, and without any coercion or without any withdrawing, without ever any attempt to push or take over or do any of those kind of things. It's the great unique quality of Christ as an individualized being in the human experience with us, that it never, ever does that. It only serves. So we can discuss why that is and what that means and what it does to us in the long run is at a certain point. But today we're looking at an overview of this quality, this I quality that we possess, that brings through our free will that quality, that individuality of love to us, right to our embrace, for our acceptance in a personal, embracing way. In other words, are we ever going to grow into that? It is love as a cosmic being, one who imbues the entire universe with itself, and happened to, at its own behests, enter into the human experience as a human being with us. That's the remarkable event that transpires at Golgotha, which is the place of the crucifixion. So having done that, it's here. And when we think of empowering our life with love, that's the central aspect of love that we see, the son aspect, produced by the father aspect and the mother aspect in us, as we finally come to a place where we can give birth to it, as did the mother of Jesus in her son. And remarkable as that might be, it did happen. So how we treat that in ourselves determines our future with it. Now, how you want to treat it in yourself is up to you. And with your free will, you're going to do that. You can reject it as a partner in your life or as a truth being embodied in humanity, as did the Jewish culture, much of the Jewish culture, certainly not all of it, when it happened, because it was a little forward-leaning for the day. And so a lot of people were like, I don't quite get how this works. A minute ago, God was outside of us in Jehovah, and we were looking at it that way, which we had been doing for a long, long time. And now all of a sudden, one of our own shows up and says, it's inside of us. And you are it, and it is you. And the question is, how soon do you want to realize that? How soon do you want to recognize that your I, the I that made us what we are, that remarkable word, I, that everyone speaks, is a complete explanation in one word of what we are. I. And if we use the Eastern version of this with I am, then we're embodying that. We're acknowledging that the I that we are is embodied. I am. And it's self-explanatory if you're speaking it at a Rotary meeting that you're talking about physical embodiment. I am. Which is a profound statement if we understood what it actually meant. We're learning, we're taking our time, and we're getting there. And in the East, that's a further idea amplified to say, I am that. Meaning everything. I am that. Which is what the Christ says. As an I, this love energy can say with confidence, I am that. And it can go even further and say, I am that I am. Meaning, it's the Alpha and the Omega, which is mentioned. So we're looking at it from this point of view. How do we find in ourselves the desire for, the willingness, and the activation of free will that can identify that quality of love that is the sun. And it is the same SON that's in the SUN of a solar being or a cosmic being or a constellational being. All of those beings have this in them. I can't validate that they all register it and know it and realize it, but I suspect you don't get to that level of the game, the evolution game, unless you are pretty aware of who's the creator of it all. So this I am that, or just the I am, is a very large amplification when the I that we have personally, each of us, you, is identified with the I that is the Christ stream that energizes with love the entire cosmic physical universe and streams into that universe from somewhere outside of it. Now, most of us being the human race, have not opened that I in us and taken that Christ consciousness, that embodied being that's in the human race with us, taken that in and made it our companion, and then fused ourselves with it so that there's no distinguishing separation. When that happens, then you are truly empowered by that. Its power is your power to the degree that you can access it and manage it and express it. But the unmanaged and unexpressed association that comes with that union produces tremendous results in our lives that are not yet identified. The well-being of your life, the health of your body, the sense of positive creative power that enters your very speech, your act, your expression. And that comes with purifying the three streams of love that pass through us, pass through the I of us. That's I as in I, not EYEI, although there's always a relationship between all of these things. And so we're looking at that. We're looking at that union of I with the I am that is love itself, or the I am that, which is the life of the universe as love. Now, it has to be desired by us, of course, or we're not going to approach it in terms of activating our union with it. So we have to find in ourselves, by looking around the world and having personal experience and watching others' personal experiences, it's a group experience, and decide for ourselves whether that is A, true, B, desirable, and C, obtainable. When we come to the conclusion that it is true, it is desirable, and it is obtainable, then we can act on it, and we can open that sacred I in us. Because if you think about it, take a look, nothing can interfere with your I. It might look like something could, because we can be conditioned, our personality can be conditioned by torture or abuse or various things to act a certain way. But in the end, it cannot penetrate into the I. We can get over it. We can come away from it. We can come back to our own path of proper development. Now, it's a long conversation to look at how we are not victimized. There is no such thing as victimhood. I know everyone loves it, and everyone wants to be a victim of something. I don't care whether it's toenail fungus or somebody out there doing something to you. It's all an expression of our will reacting on us in unintended consequences. And it doesn't look like that because we look at life from a day-to-day basis. We think, what did I do to create an accident? What did I do to create this mess I've got myself into? Sometimes we're pretty clear on how we got into that mess because we decided to go out and do it, and then there it is, and we go, well, I should have thought that through better. But we are a long-lived creature in that I. Your I is inviolable. Nothing can end it. It could be begun. Something began it. Something begat us as I. And you can think it was just simply a wild night of fun with your parents. But out of that, something was summoned forth. That which is and becomes I. Now, once created, it never ends. It does grow up, bigger, larger, deeper, wider. Every experience gives us more knowing, more knowledge, more expansion, more inclusiveness. So that's the path of our development. Now the question is, what happens at death? Well, it's becoming not conclusive to everybody except those who experience it, but it's going to become conclusive at some point in our human expansion of journey of knowing things and realizing things, that the I is not impacted in its life, existential life, its existence, by even death. It simply moves to a new territory. And then because of the circular evolutionary development of the universe, it does seem to be a spherical thing that works with wheels turning within wheels, and we seem to find our way back to our experience on Earth. And this is the reincarnation conversation, which isn't in a lot of Christianity because it was removed by human beings at a certain point. They made a decision for us on our behalf, we would hope, to take that concept out of the conversation, particularly when it came to the Christian idea of life and death, because it wasn't convenient and it didn't suit the conversation, and it's not an easy conversation to have, and it's not a simple thing to understand. But other experiences with life involving other I's than Christians didn't take the same path. The Hindu, for example, or the Buddhist, or any number of other groups. I'm not sure how Mohammedanism views the concept, but they borrowed what they got pretty much from Christianity and the Jewish history. And so we're kind of stuck with it. In the Jewish history, it's there simply because the Christ was foretold by Elijah and other prophets in terms of who he was before he was Jesus of Nazareth, and other options like that describe certain workings of the reappearance of beings in future time periods. And all of it only gives the meaning of karma, which is discussed in some Eastern religions. The concept of karma, or the idea of past experiences creating future debts to work out in relationship to this I, or love, or ourself, that only makes sense if you have this reincarnation worked out to a degree where it's okay with you. And I don't know why it wouldn't be. It just has to be eventually resolved in the world, because we have a division between those who agree with it and those who don't. And too bad, there's some disagreement there. But it will be worked out, because the do's or the don'ts will eventually perceive through the veil of illusion how it actually works. By knowing how it works, and then evidencing how it works. And there are those who remember past lives and talk about them and go on some TV show to show you, this is where I lived when I was in the 1700s as this person, stuff like that. And we can call it fake, or we can be amazed. We can do whatever we choose with the information because we have I and we have free will. But at some point or another, we're going to reconcile all of those different opinions, and we're going to know the journey of the I. And then that will open up our own journey. If it's past lives, it will open that up. If it's not, it'll open up that. So we're looking at this not in terms of reincarnation or not. That's not what we're here to discuss or prove. We're looking at the I as in terms of how you can look at the perfected consciousness of love, which is referred to on earth as the Christ consciousness. How we can look at that and decide to include it in our I through our free will, deciding to open the ring, in a sense. There's a ring that is your, or a sphere, that is your shell of I. Keeps you inviolable against the forces all around us and energies. But we're inside of it. And so is the Christ consciousness. So, because it essentially, as the creative force of the universe, created us and serves us with this incredible humility. So we can open that up. We can open that separation up in us and engage it from inside our sacred space of I. Now, no one is going to do this for you or me or anyone. The Christ is not going to do it to you or for you. But if you want the relationship, if you want to share the consciousness of this cosmic being with your consciousness as it grows towards that, you can do that. And you don't have to swallow a whale. You just open it up and begin to take it on at the level and speed with which we can assume it through our experience. And it joins us and begins to act through us in ways that are utterly remarkable. And we think, well, that sounds pretty good. What's the downside? What do I have to give up? What's the bargain here? And it's this argument in ourselves that prohibits us from making this choice until we have come to the maturity in ourselves of knowing what the argument means to us and what we are willing to give up for it and what we have to give up for it and what we don't want to give up. And the speed with which we give it up, all of that has to become something that we're okay with. We're down for it. And if we embrace things that love... Sorry. If we embrace things that love cannot countenance, not because it makes a judgment about it, like harming people, but because the illusion that you could do such a thing, the illusion that you can be separate from it, the illusion of different things, makes it something that love by its nature does not support. We don't have a way to validate everything. So some of what makes up our consciousness is pure illusion and glamour and Maya, as the East says, which means it's not real. And love is a antidote for those things because it does not deal in them. If you want to have an illusion about something, you have to remove love out of a conversation to produce an illusion. It's the absence of love that allows the illusion to exist. the illusion that she's the only one for you, and you're going to love her forever, and you can't wait until you graduate from high school and get married and are going to be married for eternity. That kind. That's an emotional attraction formulating a desire in our consciousness, but it isn't really probably going to happen. Not that we don't have high school romances that last a lifetime. We do. We have child romances that last a lifetime. So, but most don't. So, and love is not wanting to interfere with that illusion because it's yours. You have free will. So it leaves it alone. But if you're going to embrace love fully, you're going to see through the illusions and glamours. You're going to see through the revenge, the desire for hatred, the wishing for someone else to be harmed by their own consequences or by you. So we have to figure that out because love will only play love's game. And when we've played all the other games and we want love's game more than we want those games, then we will do that. We will join that. I'm sorry, I didn't silence my phone today, and it's blowing up. All of that, by the way, is my daughter. It's like she's just got a lot to say right now. But we'll get back to Liz. So this is a big subject, but the end result of this subject will be, if you follow the Love Foundry's point of view and care to join a workshop or so, will be union with love, full union with love, and the elimination of illusion, the elimination of the unreal, because the presence of love is an antidote for all that is unreal to the degree that we surrender it to love. And some people think, beings of darkness that roam around out there in the dark of night and might attack us, one level of us or another, our emotional body, our mental body, our physical body. These things worry us. But you see, any being that demonstrates absence of love is to the degree they are absent love, not real. If you take any being in the universe and give it love, actually love it, it will become a creature of love. Or it will run from it, it will hide from it, it will move away from it. So in the end, our answer to the universe is love. And our source of that, if we want the spirit of love, the power of love in us, will be Christ consciousness, not Jesus. He's a guy with it, just as there are others on the earth with Christ consciousness fully, more or less. But us, you personally, if that's in you, it's in you. And if you give it to anything, it must receive it or retreat away from it. And things with free will can retreat away from it. Things without free will, like your houseplants, your cat, they will receive it because there it is, and you're feeding it to them. And this is a great source of transformation in our lives and transmutation and bliss and other qualities of love that come into our experience when we give it away. So at the Love Foundry, we're looking at the process through which all of this can happen in a really short time. You can begin it immediately, right now. You don't need any time, but it takes certain steps combined together to make it functional for us. And those steps look something like this. A, you have to see what it is in you that says no to love constantly. Nope, no thanks. And you can think, well, why would I say no to love? Well, for a lot of reasons. If you've been conditioned to resent it in one of the forms that it appears, maybe you've been conditioned against Christianity, which is not a thing. It's a thing formed around the idea of love, badly, by the way, and it's demonstrated in an awkward way right now and missing some of its really valuable components in sometimes, but it's there. And so if we're scared of it or we have had past experience with it on some level, you might say, no, I don't want any of that. And justifiably so, by the way. I mean, I don't know how many people the Inquisition killed, but a lot. I don't know how many witches they dipped, but a lot. So there could be a deep psychic resentment towards people who did something to you. But that was not love doing it to you. That was not the Christ doing it to you. That was a bunch of people that were, however well-intended, totally off the mark. So we have these things in us which are preloaded emotional charges or mental images or physical memories of hurt. We have these things in us, and if that thing which we think caused them, which was never love, but somebody representing it, approaches us, we could throw it away. We could throw the whole thing away. So we have to stop and sort out the baby from the bathwater and say, okay, wait a minute. Let's take a look at this. Let's see what happened back there in Palestine and what they did to this guy and what this guy was actually striving to demonstrate for us, and with the nature of love that was in him, doing pretty miraculous stuff. And let's see if we can get back on track with growing a positive relationship to that. And that would solve a lot of problems for the Jewish culture, because they produced this amazing human being, which they then turned against because they were told to, and didn't know how to understand the depth of his experience when he was transferring an old relationship to love in Jehovah and in other precepts to a new relationship to love in them. Now remember, when the Greeks and people like that got introduced to it, they had old precepts too. They had old stories about Zeus and all these people that were a relationship to living beings. They weren't relationships to clay pots or pictures on a wall or some story from Euripides or somebody. These were actually stories about relationships between human beings and greater beings of one kind or another. And they're reduced to symbolic stories in Greek myths or Roman myths or the Mahabharata of the Hindus and the Bhagavad Gita and those various sources that these old stories come from, all the way back to the American Indian and the Great Spirit and these other stories that come from indigenous people. We'd like, at our heightened intellectual point of view, to think that none of that was real, but you'd be a damn fool to judge that because you can't remember being there. You don't remember when the Indians were actually talking to the spirit of a mountain and asking permission to put their tribe on the side of the mountain for a winter and asking him whether this is a good place to do it and getting an answer. Now that sounds like silliness to a lot of humans today. Because why? Because your science hasn't proved it to you? Why do you doubt your own ancestors? That's all kind of silly, really, when we stop to think about how much we disparage the universe of living beings by our current intellectual scientific model, which is about that big compared to the universe and about that long compared to time. Well, not that long, more like, that long. So you see, it's okay to step back and look at the great minds, the great Greek minds that gave us intellect, gave us science. Look at the great beings that have contributed to that little body of knowledge we do have. And you'll find a lot of them talking about things that today intellectualism would like to just call stupid, but they weren't stupid. They just weren't. Go look at Darwin, just Darwin, who everybody goes, oh, well, he's all about evolution. Sure, he understood something about how creatures can modify themselves through physical experience and diet and things. But that didn't mean that he was denying everything else that ever happened in the universe or any of these other guys. A lot of the people like Johannes Kepler, who figured out that we're circling the sun and the mathematical equations of that, and Galileo, a lot of these guys were actually astrologers. They thought about those different suns out there in the heavens as living beings having an impact on our sun, and through our sun on our earth, and through our earth on us. And they developed this astrology of relationships of beings to other beings and the impact they have on one another as they move around in the space. Now, I don't know how smart Johannes Kepler was, but he worked out the frickin' orbits of the planets, so he's smarter than me. And so if he's talking about astronomy or the muses or any of the things that are like supernatural beings, I'm not arguing with him. I don't necessarily buy into it, but I'm not arguing with him. I'm saying, well, maybe he is aware of something I'm not. But we've come down the trail from several hundred years ago when he was doing that to where we are today, and we're so confident about everything we don't know. We're so sure that that's not true. You need to stop that. We need to lighten up a little on history and let it be. My favorite comment about all of that is from the novel The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway. And the whole story takes place while a man is dying and is passing through his brain. And he's in his last, I think it's his last idea or the last line of it, or how it goes at the end as he's finally dying, is he realizes to himself, it was not any one great thing that was true. It was all true. And that stuck with me, Hemingway's comment, because it just rings true. It's all true. And it's just a question of your point of view. And the only one who has a perfect point of view is perfect love. If you want that point of view, open up your self, let that perfect love in, and share your identity with it. Created it anyway. You can't escape the creative power of the universe that gave you individuality. You think you gave it to yourself. Perhaps you earned it by living through the animal kingdom or something, but something had to agree to it. It may be an automatic system, which means when you reach a certain point of maturity of yourself, it creates a certain kind of compression, like radioactivity, and all of a sudden this emerges. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. But I do think that you can find a way to know it yourself, to know how you became I, and its relationship to the Christ consciousness, which is the perfect love in the I, the universal I. And then we can get this power going in us because it's already there. The only thing separating the three streams of love from being something we express to others, thereby proving it to ourselves, is our free will. What? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink? Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. But if you don't drink, pretty soon you die of thirst. And if you look at the world around you, you will see what's going on. It's dying of thirst of love. And then at a certain point, it will break through to it because it will show up. It's showing up with us. It's already here with us, and some people are demonstrating it pretty good. But it's going to show up on its own with us. And then you can say, okay, I yield. I'll take some. And that's going to be a conversation to have. And not everyone will agree. And those who say, no, I'm not taking that, don't have to. Those that say, yes, I'm in, will. And we will see how those paths work out for the human experience. Nobody's going to lose their eye because of it. But we are going to commit ourselves by our choice to a path of experience. And the path of experience will lead, as all paths do, in a great circle back to the point where we recognize what is real and what is not. So that's kind of all I have to say about that aspect of it, although we could go on. I just want to put that there so that it works inside of you or me, and then we can see how we grow. It's how it lives in you that will determine your path, not how it lives in me or someone else. And you don't need a bunch of other people living it a certain way to convince you. There are lots of Catholics in the world. There are lots of Protestants in the world. And there are lots of Muslims and lots of Hindus and lots of people living their version of all of this. Set all of them aside. Respect their thought forms being developed by people about these ideas of life. But what's yours? How does it live in you? Even if you are part of one of those organizations and you want to stay on track with them because they have good picnics, or that's where all the cute chicks go, or something. Whatever you want to do to keep going with your path of experience with others, that's fine. But let this I of you and this consciousness of love work out your personal relationship inside of you, because that's the one we take with us forward in time. And what you build with love, you never lose. You might forget it temporarily, but you never lose it. And the more you're empowered by it, the more your future will unfold in harmony with it. No question about that. That's how harmony works. And it's getting stronger right now in the world, and it needs our cooperation to make it a group human event, but not around somebody's idea of it, around your actual inner relationship to it based on your experience, your free will, and its reality. Thank you very much. See you next time. And we'll talk about the Father stream.
Wanna know